Hey there, podcast fans. Welcome back to Age of Agility. This is Nickel Fleur, producer of the show. We're continuing our suite of episodes about agile entrepreneurship with a guest who works closely with colleges and universities while growing his business. This week, we're joined by Soham Khaitan, co-founder and chief growth officer at the Ambi Network, a virtual community which helps students connect to their learning communities and each other on a safe, productive, and collaborative platform. Even before the pandemic forced closures of colleges and universities last spring, many schools were already shifting their focus from in-person facilities and amenities to developing a better digital experience for their students. Shannon and Soham talk about the need for digital transformation at higher ed institutions and how it's become only more critical since the events of last year. Soham gives us some perspective about the challenges schools face when it comes to being agile and how partnering with edtech companies can help bridge the gap and give school administrators more data about how members of their communities are engaging with each other. Take a listen and enjoy our conversation with Soham Khaitan, co-founder of the Ambi Network.
Welcome back to the Age of Agility. We're super happy to have you here with us today. And with us today, we have a digital transformation and education expert talking with us today. His name is Soham Khaitan, and he is the co-founder and chief growth officer at the Ambi Network. Soham, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about you and the Ambi Network and what you all do? We'd love to hear about that.
You know, Facebook was launched in 2004, and as everyone knows, it was a college network. It was a university network, but they never partnered with universities. They would kind of storm the campus and do their own thing, and obviously they had a bigger market to get, and they kind of expanded out beyond that. Since then, and since before then, we've only seen siloed tools for education, meaning that every department or every kind of admin has their own tool, and it's implemented in kind of a very traditional SaaS model that I think was invented in like the early 2000s, which is just, this is my silo. It's kind of this completely, it's not a network. It's an instance, you can say. So Ambi kind of flips that on its head. It's a global learning social network where you need to have a .edu or you have to be invited into the network to get on. And universities have what we call campuses within the network. A campus is kind of this private area that only the university and its students can access with resources, with the clubs, with the integration with Canvas. It kind of has all these tools. And then students can opt out of that campus to kind of go into the network and explore other educational opportunities, whether that's, you know, an MBA program at another school, or whether that's a non-traditional learning experience through another boot camp, or just buying a book. The network kind of has all those possibilities, all centered around education, learning, and growth. We founded it. My co-founder's name is Saad Al-Yamani. He came up with the idea when we were both undergraduates. Both of us grew up at a time where we grew up with very consumerized kind of software. Uber, DoorDash, Netflix, Instagram, all these things were kind of innate to us. And the UX was just extremely good. These companies, you could tell they had departments for user experience and they invested in that. And that's how they competed. But we didn't see that in education. And that's when kind of the light bulb went off, and Saad said, why don't we challenge the existing system and, can we flip it on its head by creating the best kind of something more student-friendly, student-centric. That's when Ambi was kind of incubated.
So you have been working very closely with colleges and universities, obviously, over the last few years as you're building Ambi. So on this podcast, we talk all about agility, right? About the ability to flex and change, and would love to hear a little bit about your experience with what agility really means in higher education as it is today.
I think the way I define agility is, I think the way a lot of kind of companies in Silicon Valley approach agility and experimentation. And that's through experimentation. I mean, if you look at the process for rolling out new software updates, making big changes when it comes to, let's say, Instagram stories is a horrible example, but things like that. um, it starts with a hypothesis, hey, or it starts with a problem. Here's kind of this problem that we have. And you brainstorm, here's 5 ways that could address it. You sort of test each one in some capacity, and you, it's kind of a measured approach. There is a process around it. And that involves being open to new things. So I think agility in higher education means being open to solving new problems that are coming up kind of every 6 months in new ways. I think agility is a mindset. It's not necessarily super tangible, but it's a mindset. And as a leader in higher education, are you someone who's kind of allowing that agility to kind of go throughout your entire organization? That's, the culture setting. I think agility is also a culture. You shouldn't be shamed for doing something that didn't work out, or that sort of thing. You have to be open just to small experiments, I think.
Higher education obviously has been consistently changing, right, over time, but is sometimes known as one of those industries that hasn't quite changed as fast as many others.
Mhm.
And then we're really hit by COVID-19.
Right.
And, I think we talked a few weeks ago with Matteo about how he ran a car business on college campuses, and then there were none. No one was there anymore. So thinking about that industry in this year, and maybe historically, if you could take us back a little bit about what has sort of digital transformation really meant in
Mhm.
higher education, and then seeing sort of what you're seeing with Ambi in the most recent past about how much they've had to change.
So I would say the last big change that really took the market came in around 2001, 2000, which was from a company called Blackboard. And they basically became the market leader in this thing called, back then, the course management system, which today is a learning management system. And that happened because the internet was just invented, and or just became mainstream, rather. And when new technology kind of comes about, you can apply it to problems all over and come up with new ways of doing things. And the way they applied it to higher ed was, let's take all these kind of assignments and homeworks and put it online. Now, as logical as that sounds, that was an extremely hard thing to do in terms of getting universities to adopt it. Because, I mean, just like we have the whole argument of like, automation is going to replace all the jobs. There was a kind of fear back then of this technology is going to take my teaching career, and like, no, I'm not doing it.
Interesting, yeah.
But they pushed through using different methods, and that was a new category that was formed. Canvas came along 10 years later and kind of made a better LMS, more user friendly, but still faculty centric. Still lent into the same model of selling to administrators. So it was a very feature heavy sell. Here's the 10 features that I have. I know you need 9 of these. Will you buy this? And there was no kind of concern for the student or for the person who is actually undergoing the learning experience. Now we're seeing a shift with tools like Ambi, where it's like, wow, okay, my focus as a university is not on keeping my faculty happy, because 10 years ago, that's sort of what you were judged on. Like, how many faculty do I have that are world-class, that are doing fantastic research, etc. That has shifted to, are my students graduating on time, and are they getting jobs after they graduate from my institution? And that's when student-centric technology comes into play, and things that can engage the student and actually help them succeed, versus complain about the software of colleges, which is just happening at every school right now.
Especially as you have fully digitally native this generation becoming college students, I can only imagine their demand for digitization is so much higher than even when you were there, right? These kids have had technology since they were born. It's really your consumers have changed, right? And I think that, higher ed hasn't always, I feel like, you know a lot more about it than I do, but thought about students as consumers, but they truly are. And I think bringing up that user experience thing you were talking about with Uber and all of these other things, right? Ambi is really filling that void, right, of that user experience for students.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's the best user experience on the ed tech market for higher ed. I mean, it's just when you compare it with anything else in the market, it's miles ahead. It's designed by some of the best people in the world, best designers in the world. We've gotten technologists from LinkedIn and from all sorts of companies helping build the back end, so it's extremely robust, secure, and fast. Which is, that's how you build in 2020 and in 2021. It has to be good. And your point of serving the consumer, you're right. I mean, there's that's just a trend we're seeing in all businesses, and for higher ed, it's like, if I serve my consumer well during these 4 years and they stay happy as an alumni, now there's this whole thing of like reskilling and upskilling, which is becoming a huge industry in itself. And schools need to participate in that. And I think a lot of innovative schools are. I mean, there's one way, which is like through these executive programs and MBA programs that are like, sort of quick. But even that requires agility. It's like, it's like, I'll make an analogy to kind of the government in California and maybe the federal government in the US, which is like, it's like, okay, electric cars are coming out. There's like self-driving technology that's coming out. It's like, how do you deal with this stuff? Like, it's being invented so quick. And if you take 18 months to decide what to do to make the law, which is the tradition, it takes 2 years before they make a decision, before they really understand what's even going on. It's like you've slowed down the pace of innovation so much that it's not working. It's not a symbiotic relationship between innovation and kind of the government. It's like the government has to innovate like yesterday, and they have to implement tomorrow in terms of like, what the path forward should be. And I think higher ed will go towards a direction where they're able to move quickly like that, where they're able to implement tomorrow. And whether that's done through in-house teams of their own, kind of guiding their own learning, and they're equipped with the right software to do all that, or they partner with companies. There's a fantastic company called Green Fig Education, and what they do is they build these innovative courses for 2021 about how to use the best software and learn skills that will get you employed, guaranteed. And they partner with universities to provide those courses through the schools. That's a fantastic kind of model and example of higher ed moving fast, but by partnering with someone outside their ecosystem. And I hope we see more of that.
Yeah. So on that same topic, what would you say is the ideal tech stack for a college or university?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the ideal tech stack for the student experience is, looking at the market, I think it's 3 tools. I think it's something like Zoom, and learning management system like Canvas and Ambi. And the reason I say that is because Ambi integrates with tools like Zoom and with the learning management system. So as a student, right now when I log on, it's very hard for me to kind of be like, oh, is my coursework on Canvas? What else is on Canvas? I don't know. So they just go in and go out. They're like, and let's add in a school portal actually as well, school resources. Like, where does that live? They log onto a portal and there's like 100 things on there. And then it's like Zoom, like, where do I find the link? Is it on, where is it? And then it's just a confusing kind of mess of tools. By integrating all 3 of those systems into Ambi, students can log on to kind of this very, it's a student layer. It's a front end of the digital kind of the experience, of the learning experience. And everything is kind of organized in the social media type modality, which is how the current generation navigates the world. And they can just access everything in one place contextually at the right time. Things are served to them. Hey, class is about to start. Here's kind of the Zoom link, and here's the events that are happening on campus right now. One click and you can join, or here's a resource that you need for this week, and it shows up on their feed. It's just done in a very kind of intuitive way. So I think that's the kind of student-centric front end stack. And then on the back end, I think what this allows is for really unique analytics and insights into where students are falling short, what the resources they're using. And one of the things that Ambi does is increases kind of the engagement universities are getting by 20-fold. I mean, it's one of those things that's just like 10x better than what came before. Instead of minutes of a student's time, kind of every few days, you're getting an hour plus a day. And that lends to extremely good analytics and hopefully just a win-win situation for the student and for the school, because you're getting much better feedback, much more continuously about what's working and what's not.
I think thinking about this in the sense of how does your consumer want to consume, and like what are they used to and what do they understand is definitely the way that most you're seeing the companies that are growing the fastest and doing sort of being able to be as super agile are really thinking about their customers first. And I think that is and it doesn't matter which industry you're in, right? Tech, not tech. I think, everything is digital at this point, especially right now.
I agree. Every industry is going that way. And the scary thing, and this is where I think like good culture and an organization comes into play, is if you're not currently completely like consumer centric, doing so will lead to short-term losses. Because I mean, any type of pivot or change leads to some kind of disruption. So it's like, are you bold enough as a leader or as an organization to make that pivot, to take that risk per se? But then long term, if you're looking at long-term shareholder value for any company, I mean, it's the obvious way. It's the only way to sort of be consumer centric. I mean, the most the best performing companies today all have or the fastest growing companies have a software component that's extremely, I mean, just tech is like a big thing these days. And, their end service is pleasurable for the consumer. I mean, it's easy to use, it's easy to pick up, it's sticky, people come back. And that's how you provide long-term value.
Absolutely. This is reminding me, we did some research at the end of 2020 about business priorities. We surveyed 500 global leaders about sort of what their priorities are coming out of 2020. And it was interesting to see actually resilience and like business continuity became the most important. And actually customer experience sort of fell down the list. Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting part of this and talking to you is saying, if you don't have that structure to be able to be agile, so you don't have that resilience and the correct technology, then you really can't serve your customer, right? So you can't really have them flipped if you're in a time that's forcing you to pivot and change, sort of like they had to this year. Because I'm sure most higher education institutions were looking to see how can we save money this year, not how we can continue to invest in more software to have a better customer experience, right? But they had to kind of pair together, I'm sure, to be able to continue to have a good experience and also keep your institution from sort of going under in a year where you have no students on campus.
And that's where I think, going back to experimentation is so important. It's like, yes, business continuity is the priority for the next 9 months, but on the side, am I preparing for, the next 5 years? Like, if I think the segment is going to grow, am I doing something at a really small scale to test and to see if it's working or not working? And so I can at least, when I decide to scale it up, I have a lot of insight. I've let's say you're going to invest $1 million in something. I've invested, $20,000 over 9 months. And that $20,000 has informed how I'm going to invest the rest in very meaningful ways. And I'm not going to go down the wrong path and et cetera. So I think that's the core of agility. It's like, are you able to do both, even in times of, crisis is crisis, you can't.
Right.
But I think there is something there with experimentation.
Definitely. So what do you see are the challenge, like the most common challenges you're going to see where with colleges implementing a new digital strategy or really trying to digitally transform? What are the greatest, like the most common roadblocks that you see?
I think to some extent, they're spoiled for choice because there's so much, so many tools. But that's where I think long-term thinking comes, is super important. But I think if they do it right, it's going to be easy. Any implementation project requires a good communications plan, which I think any vendor should kind of make sure they do with the school. it's certainly something that we do at Ambi. But students are just yearning for it. Like they're asking for it, they're dying for it. They're just like, please give me something better than this, like please, and
Yeah.
just begging for it. So I think
Yeah.
we introduced them to something modern. I mean, it just just clicks. And I think yeah. I mean, I think it's a good experience.
Well, this is when we come to the point of the podcast where I get to ask you how you are doing. So, so how has this been? How has the last year been for you? How are things going with Ambi? And this is my favorite part of the podcast, so I get to know a little bit more about my guests. But so, how are you doing, Soham?
No, thank you for asking. Yeah, it's been, it's been a tough year for the world, and it's been tough for me as well. And I'm trying to be mindful of kind of everything going on. There's just so much uproar and change. So I'm really trying to proceed every day with extreme mindfulness. But things at Ambi have been great. We've certainly been able to help a lot of schools, and there's a fantastic spirit inside our company, which I'm really grateful for. And really working with universities, especially the innovative kind of universities who are usually our customer right now, because we're still a startup. So we tend to work with the innovators in the market at the current stage, has been really awesome. Because, I mean, you see educators who are they're completely in for this change, and they want to have an impact, and they want to do things right. You see student government leaders stepping up and asking for better technology, which, you can see students having a voice. So being a part of all that has been really inspirational for me. And, seeing Ambi implemented at schools has also been amazing, because I remember being a student, which wasn't too long ago. And I remember how difficult it was sometimes because of the software. And it's just nice to see that change.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of, I know you're very busy schedule, to talk with us today. I'm sure our audience is really going to appreciate your insight. So where can folks find you if they want to follow you, maybe some of your social media accounts, anything like that?
Of course. So I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So just my first is Soham Khaitan at LinkedIn and Twitter, and make sure you follow Ambi, the Ambi Network. We're Ambi Generation at Twitter, and just Ambi Inc. at LinkedIn. And our website is ambi.network. If you know any educators, whether it's high schools or colleges, I would request that you share the website with them. We're really trying to make a large impact, and we'd love to help how we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And to all of you out there, make sure to like and subscribe. We are on all of your platforms where you listen or watch your favorite podcasts, and also on YouTube. And you can go to quickbase.com/podcast to find all of season 1 and season 2. And we look forward to seeing you next week. All right. Bye.